This mysterious and creepy story happened to me when I was 12 years old. I'll tell you my story from my childhood. I was 12 years old, I studied at school, well enough for such a hyperactive boy. My mother is a religious and rather conservative woman, like my father. He often told me that night is a place where your mind and soul can hear or see devilry or spirits. I laughed at it then, but I listened to my father. And besides the rest of my friends from school, I had a best friend. I'll change his name. It's Jimmy. The redhead is so tall, he is 3 years older than me, and the same cheerful and fast boy as me. And so we decided in the evening, when the parents went to the nursing home to their parents, to take a walk through the abandoned factories a little further from the city, more precisely on the border of the city near the river. Everything was fine at the beginning, but inside the building, a friendly-looking homeless man was sitting near rusted metal barrels. He did not give his name, but said his nickname, Yellow. He smoked a lot. His teeth were yellow from cheap homemade cigarettes. Despite his appearance, he was a very friendly and cheerful person. He began to tell his story. Once this plant created parts for Ford cars, but in 1992 it was closed for unclear reasons. Yellow himself did not know why, and the workers lost their jobs. Among them was Yellow. He lost his wife and son in a fire a week after losing his job, and on the very day they burned down, he was drinking with friends in a bar when he got a call and was told that his house was on fire. He rushed with his friends to his home, but he only saw how firefighters were trying to extinguish the house. They failed, and Yellow lost everything, jobs and loved ones. After that, he became homeless and lost the meaning of life. At the time of this tragedy, he was 38. At a late age, I realized. When he was telling this, it was 2009. He was already 55 years old. In the year when his tragedy occurred, I was not yet born. He was smiling at the moment when he told his fate. I was still in shock at the time and asked myself one question. Why? Why are you smiling? I'm still wondering why he did it. After his story, it began to get dark. He advised us to go home because it is better for children not to walk in a night city, even in such a safe one as ours. We didn't tell our relatives that we went to the factories. They would have punished us. We were lucky, by the way, because they arrived later than usual. If they had arrived a little earlier, they would have punished us for a week, that's for sure. My parents saw our success at school and good behavior and allowed us to walk around the city in two. And we used it. In addition to various fools and jokes about classmates, we almost every time went to Yellow. He told a lot of things, and about the fact that people used to be better, and about old traditions, and about how factories were closed, etc., and so on. But one thing we clearly remember. These are his eyes when he began to tell about the night in the abandoned factories. He said that during the onset of darkness, you need to sleep in dark rooms or under stairs where you need to avoid garbage and try not to make noise. A lot of freaks and criminals sleep in these factories, and there have been cases when they have killed or beaten homeless people. But not the point. Yellow believed that at night quiet monsters and people's spirits were walking in factories. He said that at the moment when they catch and kill their victim, they scream loudly and like a sepulchral cry. Their voice is similar to human and animal at the same time. I myself, as well as Jimmy, did not believe his words, but Yellow's eyes were full of horror, and he told us with trembling voices. I still remember his intonation and the fear that was in Yellow's voice. He came up to us and said, "Don't come here at night on November 31st. Don't go! Please! They appear at the end of the month. I saw them myself." His eyes were running like a madman's. Jimmy and I went home, but before that we were terrified and confused at the same time. We could not understand, since this is a frank fairy tale for children. Then why did such a smart and cheerful homeless man say it with such horror? Maybe he's right and those monsters exist? Or maybe it's people who kill them. Our childish mind couldn't answer itself, so is that true? But what do you think? Did we go to the factory where it was Yellow? Or did we stay at home? Of course we went to the factory. How I've changed my life. In those years, I was an extremely curious and even arrogant child. I didn't believe what adults and people were saying. I climbed wherever I wanted and constantly communicated with Jimmy, in fact, my twin brother. We were already standing near the factory, but then we heard dogs barking. We hid in the factory and saw a yellow one who was making a wall for himself near the bed. He looked at us with fear and with sharp movements grabbed us and dragged us to his bed. He made a gesture to shut up, and then we heard a heavy and eerie howl, like something evil and monster-like. Yellow started crying and ran to the top. Jimmy and I were lying without movement or noise. Neither Jimmy nor I knew how much time had passed. Then this silence was interrupted by a sharp and knocking sound, as if someone with claws was running fast. The noise grew louder and louder, until we heard that it had become higher. Apparently, it had risen higher on the floor. There was silence again, and then a sharp and monstrous cry of Yellow in its pain rang out. We heard him, and Jimmy and I ran out of the wall and Yellow's bed like a bullet. We didn't stop for a second, and ran with all our might. We ran to our homes and then locked ourselves in our rooms. A day later in the morning, we went to this factory again. And do you know what the scariest thing is? We didn't find him. We found each floor twitching like neurotics, but did not find Yellow. The only thing we found above the place where we were lying hiding from what we didn't see was a broken glass with blood on it. After that, Jimmy and I didn't discuss this story. It was as if we had forgotten her, erased her from our memory for the sake of peace. But we all remember and still remember it with the content. Who was it? Maybe criminals with dogs who were at the factory that night for some reason? The tragic death of Yellow? If so, where is he? We didn't find him. Or maybe he was right. Maybe it was really some kind of monster or wild beast that there are people. Fuck, Jimmy and I even believed in spirits and monsters. That's my story.